look back at 2021, what were the key 5G trends and technologies globally and from BT perspective?
Sure. I mean, 2021 is kind of interesting year. Still kind of grappling with COVID and still, still building out 5G network. Still really quite early in 5G. I think, from my perspective, I think at least here in the UK, customers really started to see the value of 5G, and we've done a couple of big enterprise deployments of 5G solutions. So one working with in the ports and shipping area where we're using a 5G private network to connect the port where they have all the container ships in a way that has never really been done before to assist on loading and unloading of container ships. And right now with all the supply chain challenges, anything we can do to make that simpler and more straightforward is hugely valuable. So that's one of the big things that we did. We also did a augmented reality trial with a heat pump manufacturer who's using alternative reality to help its engineers diagnose and fix problems in the field. And again, they're using 5G with kind of, but partly with their phone, partly with trying out new types of devices with goggles and things like that. And they definitely see the benefits and opportunities for that. And then, a lot of things going on in edge compute. And again, one of the other things we did, kind of part of 2020, part of 2021 as well, was we rolled out an edge compute service focused on CDN with a partner company called Quilt that allows us to deliver content in a much better quality way under our control. So that's very exciting from our point of view. We also, here in the UK, we're in the process of swapping out high-risk vendors. Huawei, you probably read about the challenges they've faced. And for us, that's going really well. It's been challenged by COVID and definitely affected. It's been harder because of COVID, but, we've got a lot of momentum on that and really starting to see some of the benefits and leading up to us with Umlaut being recognised as the best network in the UK is massive. I think globally, I think a lot of folks doing similar things. I think keen to see how some of these new startup networks like Dish and Rakuten start to mature and gain momentum and see if their model works in the way that they believe and understanding what we can learn from them, because when you start afresh, you do things differently, you think differently. So I'm really keen to see what is there anything I can learn from them and kind of take that back into our network and make things better for our customers. And really a lot of momentum in Open RAN. Huge amounts of development. I mean, I still think Open RAN's got a long road ahead, and I still believe that 6G is probably really where we'll see Open RAN explode, which probably a few years away. Probably not what most Open RAN fans want to hear, but I think many of us are kind of really into the depths of our 5G rollout, and trying to pivot to something else is probably quite difficult. And I think that's a great, the momentum in the operator community in Open RAN is hugely positive and moving at a phenomenal pace, probably quicker than anyone probably could have realized. And I think that's started to have an impact on the wider industry. So another highlight for me, is Ericsson launching their RIC controller, their SOA platform, which is effectively taking some of the same architectures and using them on Ericsson capabilities, and something we're looking at BT. But I think if I kind of look back over the last year, I think the thing I probably want to call out, Hema, is, through this really difficult period in our history, the telecommunication companies, both fixed and mobile, and many of the kind of service providers behind us have done a tremendous job in keeping the world rotating during and through this pandemic. I'm working from home today. That's kind of the direction we've got here in the UK at the moment. Many businesses have been able to pivot to other ways of working and operating, and it's all been underpinned by the network, really. And I think, I really want to say a huge thanks to everyone in our industry on their part that they've played in, keeping the world going whilst we've been dealing with this pandemic, and it's starting to look challenging again, with new variants, etc. But we're ready for it, and delivering services to our customers so that they can, work, rest, play, eat, talk to their friends and play games, whatever they're doing. They're still able to do it via the network. So for me, that's a real highlight of this year and last year, and I think something everyone in the industry should be proud about, really.
I agree with you, Neil. And in spite of all that, there were a good number of 5G rollouts.
Absolutely.
If you look at this month, it's almost like 190 plus rollouts of 5G till date, like it started from 2018 till now. So it's a very good progress.
And absolutely, I mean, for us and both 4G and 5G, we continue to roll out. So, we thought, I think there was definitely a set of challenges around COVID, but a different set of challenges in building. Here in the UK, especially in the metro areas, we're reliant upon landlords of different buildings and different facilities to put our antennas at the top of their building. And some elements of that got harder for sure. Some of it got easier because buildings there's no one there, so it's easier to work and stuff, but also no one's there, so it's hard to get in. So we kind of faced a lot of different things, and we learned a lot from that. And I think, for us, we grew our 5G network to over 100 towns and cities across the UK, and still growing. And actually 4G, let's not forget 4G, whilst it's still a big part of the network, we grew our coverage in the UK by 1%, which is the most of any operator in the UK. In fact, most of the other operators didn't grow their 4G coverage at all. And some rural locations, that's becoming more and more important as we build and roll out 5G. So, you're right. I think, we're dealing with the challenges of COVID. We're building and expanding networks, and we're keeping the service super reliable, I think. And that's probably, one of the other highlights, which is, under a really pressure time, it'd be easy to, make a mistake and break something in the network. But, I haven't heard many stories on the network side where that's happened. Clearly, Facebook had a challenge earlier this year, and also AWS, but they reacted to them very quickly and resolved things very quickly. And I think, COVID having some impact on how they happen. So again, I think a lot of great stuff, a lot of great effort and hard work from many folks to keep 5G rolling, everywhere from the folks building base stations to people building concrete for towers. I mean, there's such a big supply chain. The fact that we're able to keep pushing and keep doing stuff, I think, so, for me, an amazing statement. And a lot of work in standards again. I think standard sides slowed down a bit, but we're starting to see, what could be the first kind of 5G advanced stuff, or 5G plus, depending on what the name is. And there's some stuff in that looks very exciting, and I'm very very excited about getting back to that process of pushing out new capabilities from the standards point of view. Yeah, I mean, look, I think I think slicing. I think you're right. I think it hasn't got the momentum that we would have hoped this year. I think that's in part related to kind of standalone rollouts, which I think, probably standalone's probably, maybe a bit further behind than we all hoped it would be in terms of the rollout of that. We kind of start turning that on next year here in the UK, and partly the device guys haven't been that focused on it. A lot of folks thought standalone would come more maybe this year. That hasn't going to happen. I think that's had a knock-on effect to things like slicing. I mean, we've done a lot of, in some of the pilots and trials that we've done on private networks that I mentioned earlier, we have been using slicing in that, but it's kind of in an environment like that, it's hard to see, was that a benefit or not, because it's really one use case. I think as the volume of use cases and the volume of demands that customers place upon us increase, I think we'll start to see whether something like slicing has got value or not. I think, the other thing I definitely should have pointed out is kind of the impact that AI and ML have had in the network. In the UK, BT, we've got, one of the biggest AI patent portfolios in Europe, certainly in the UK, and we've been working on AI for quite some time before it got, before it kind of went mainstream, if you like. That certainly helped us with COVID and managing the network, and with fewer people or remotely and at home. But we're also starting to see it really have an impact on the quality of the network in a region where you might have a lot of interference, you might have a challenging landscape, and I think we're at the very early stages of that, and I can see, if I look forward, I can definitely see more and more opportunity. How far that goes, I think still too early to say, but I'm excited about it, and I think I think we're gonna. I kind of feel that next year might be the big network AI year. I think that might be what a lot of people are focused on. Is labor and skills are harder to come by. Skill shortages driven, one by the pandemic, two by the demand that we've got in the world right now. So automation and using AI and ML, I think, will be, in my mind, I think super important. And the other thing that's happened, but I don't think we've spoken enough about it, is telecom operators, and we at BT, we've been working on this actually since 1992, believe it or not. But how our network energy utilization is changing, through the lens of sustainability. As this year, and I think next year we'll see more of this, especially as the price of energy is really skyrocketing right now. Cool, and actually again using AI as well potentially, but innovative ways of lowering the power or getting more usage out of the power that we've got, I think is a crucial thing for us, both from an economics point of view, but also to do our part to get to net zero. And at BT, we've brought forward our net zero ambition to 2030, and we can see a path to that, but it relies upon technologies like 5G and the platforms and the smartphone makers and device makers, the radio guys, and everybody involved in the supply chain kind of thinks sustainability. I think that will be a big thing for next year. It's some of the things that we hope to happen this year that haven't happened that big an issue. I'm not sure, to be honest, Emma. I think there's a lot of positives that have come out of the year, and what was a difficult year, for everybody. So, I'm very optimistic that a lot of the promise of 5G and the promise of what I call networkification, as we depend more and more on the network on 5G for the way we live our lives, I'm very optimistic that we're going to see some amazing things over the next 12 months, and really exciting things. You know, we're seeing stuff on drones and drone corridors forming, and things in 5G to kind of drive you know, the ability for us to do more with things like that. And you know, I don't know if the time's right for drones or not. I don't think anyone really knows, but it's a great thing to try and experiment with, and try to, you know, use them in a way to help us, and in a variety of things that we're doing, from inspections to delivery of healthcare and medical supplies.
From a BT perspective, what would be the top priorities for 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I've just mentioned one. I definitely think that, you know, sustainability and energy is a big priority for us, for sure. The other priority for us is, you know, we start to migrate many of our customers to a new fully cloud native 5G core. And you know, again, this is linked to the Huawei challenge that we faced. Really excited about the usage of cloud technology and being able to move workloads and do things that are with cloud native that we've always really struggled to do, especially around automation, and then again using AI. So I think that's one of our big focuses. Launching SA 5G standalone next year, you know, I think that's a big priority for us. I think it'll be a priority for the industry, really. I think everyone's going to be looking at that as the devices to use that start to materialize. And then I think you know, we're also working on, we just announced this, putting network in the London Underground, which, you know, is only it's kind of only a tiny part of the UK, but it has millions of users. And it's kind of one of the last places where you're not connected. So that's going to be a big focus for us. And then private networks, you know, we've got the momentum coming out of last year into this year on private networks. How do we transform that from a very kind of bespoke model to something that's more kind of manufactured and engineered and, you know, replicable for many different types of customer, both, you know, from the core end to creating SIMs to devices to radio and authentication, and how do we package that and make it easier for customers to consume and help them on their journey of networkifying and digitalization of their own work processes and capabilities. I think that'd be a massive focus for us in BT, and taking that and working in healthcare. You know, we're trying to help our health service here in the UK use this technology to be more efficient and to deal with more patients, both, you know, digitally, but also as they progress through the, you know, procedures in hospitals and everything from emergency healthcare. You know, how do we enable ambulances and blue light vehicles be more effective? There's a lot 5G can bring to that, and again, we've been doing some trials. So really, I think you know, AI in private networks and sustainability, I think, will be, you know, one of the big talking points of 2022. And you know, I have to say, it's great to be in the middle of all this. There's just so much going on. Even though we've got this pandemic, there's still so much that we're getting done, and you know, bringing connectivity to people, to places, to processes that we've never brought it to before is it's just massively exciting.
Just on your question related to private networks, you mentioned about healthcare, you mentioned about manufacturing. Are there any other verticals that BT would be focusing on? You see a trend globally?
Yeah, I mean, I think manufacturing, I'd probably say manufacturing and logistics are the two big leading use cases that I hear about. Yeah. And it's kind of obvious why that would be the case, because there's a lot of things in it. You know, if you're a car manufacturer, there's, you know, you want to use video, and this is something we're offering. We call it camera as a service, where, you know, you can build a set of very high resolution cameras around a production line, and you can be certain that the production line is working as it should. You know, the right parts are going in, the right components are being in, the right time for two things to come together that, you know, and using, you know, high resolution video, you can really see. And then as the day goes on, if you're making, you know, I don't know, 50 cars a day, and something different happens on one car from the other 49, with the power of 5G and the power of video and analytics and anomaly detection, you can say, well, wait a minute, why is this car different? Maybe it's going to have a problem that we can fix here in the factory rather than deliver it to a customer who might be upset. And if you think about, you know, the ambition of a lot of manufacturers, you know, and I'm thinking more on the transportation side, if you think about rail transportation and airline transportation, many of the manufacturers that are trying to move from selling engines or selling locomotives to providing them as a service. So instead of, you know, you've got train as a service or engine as a service, and the manufacturing of those two things, where a modern locomotive's got over, you know, I think the quote I heard was 800 sensors. As you run, you know, a train service for cargo or for passengers, and you're providing train as a service, and you're able to detect faults from those sensors, and then go back in time to when the locomotive was made and see what happened in the process, or maybe what didn't happen, you know, that can allow you to offer those services in a much more reliable way. And I think 5G is going to play, you know, a big part, and private networks going to play a big part of the start of that journey, the kind of in life of that journey, and then the ongoing running of those types of services that many manufacturers want to offer. I think in healthcare, you know, healthcare has challenges. You've got privacy and you know, and respecting that, which I think is crucially important. But there's also a lot in healthcare where, again, using video, using anomaly detection, or using other types of technology, you know, to make it easier to diagnose patients and compare one, you know, putting more digitization into the whole medical process, and using that to compare one case with another to try and understand, you know, actually, could we have done this? Could we have done something for this patient differently? And that's all about, you know, how doctors and nurses and all the kind of staff of hospitals, you know, have to start thinking and working with us on how do they use that technology. And you know, Hema, the other thing that kind of chimes in on that for me is how important next year ecosystems and partnerships are going to be. You know, if you really want to get the benefit of 5G and the applications and the digitization, you can't do it by yourself. You're going to have to work with other players. You know, maybe there's specialists in the medical area and healthcare, maybe there's specialists in manufacturing and logistics. So I think, yeah, I think those private networks, you know, I kind of, I was asked this question earlier, you know, where do I see them being biggest? And I'm really reluctant to call it, but I think manufacturing will be one for sure. And education, you know, what more can we use these networks to educate and inform and make education easier, and then the whole space of transportation, the whole space of how do we use private networks for, you know, managing power grids or gas pipelines so that we're able to assure energy delivery and things like that. I think there's a lot of, you know, things that we need to experiment with, and I genuinely think next year that will be the big year for these sort of experiments and deployments, as customers want to leverage this technology in their own use case.
Really appreciate your time for getting your perspective on BT perspective as well as globally. Thank you.
Emma, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you.